The first time I laid eyes on her, I knew she wasn't like any being I had ever encountered. Xylar, the alien warrior, stood atop the jagged cliffs of Velora Prime, her lithe, muscular frame outlined against the orange haze of the twin suns. Her armor glinted in the fading light, etched with alien runes that pulsed faintly, evidence of some ancient energy flowing through it. Every movement she made exuded power and precision, and yet there was an air of vulnerability beneath that warrior exterior, something I wasn't sure I was ready to confront. I had been assigned to Velora Prime as part of a diplomatic mission, sent to negotiate with the Xylar Confederacy. I was just a human soldier, less than most Xylar commanders would give me credit for, but luck and perhaps stubbornness had kept me alive long enough to witness Xylar in action. She was feared and respected among her people, known as the Crimson Fang, a title reserved for the most elite fighters in the Confederacy. To call her intimidating would be an understatement. And yet, on that first encounter, I saw something different in her eyes, curiosity. Something human. Something that made me feel, against all reason, that I could reach her. The first encounter. I had been scouting the outer perimeter of the Xylar camp when I stumbled upon her. I froze, knowing I had no right to be there, yet unable to retreat fast enough without attracting her notice. She turned and her eyes, amethyst with streaks of crimson, locked on mine. "Human," she said, her voice sharp as a vibroblade slicing through steel. "Why are you here?" I swallowed hard, trying to appear confident, though my heart pounded like a drum of war. I was just scouting the area, I said, hoping my words sounded less like an excuse and more like an explanation. She studied me for a long moment, one brow raised, and then she laughed. Not a full, hearty laugh, but a short, almost surprised exhalation. "Most humans would have been torn to shreds by now," she said. "You are persistent." I nodded, unsure if that was a compliment or a threat. "Or lucky," I replied. Her lips twitched, the closest I had seen to a smile. "Perhaps," she said, then turned and disappeared into the jagged terrain, leaving me staring after her, heart racing and mind spinning. Unexpected alliance. Over the next few days, I found myself in increasingly bizarre situations alongside Xylar. A skirmish with Xylar deserters, a sudden meteor storm, a malfunction in our communications array. It seemed fate kept pushing us together. At first, our interactions were terse, professional, and cautious. I was human, fragile in comparison, and she was a warrior who had fought and survived far more than any human could comprehend. Yet there was a subtle shift. During one incident, I watched as she fought a group of marauding alien scavengers. Despite her strength and skill, one blow caught her off guard and she faltered slightly. I rushed in, not to fight but to help stabilize her stance. She glanced at me, eyes narrowing, but did not pull away. "You are reckless," she said, voice tight, but there was a hint of admiration now. "And you are impressive," I replied almost instinctively. The words escaped before I could second-guess them, and her head tilted slightly in surprise. The moment came later, during a quiet night on Velora Prime. We had set up a temporary camp after evading an ambush. I had been making minor repairs to my comm gear while Xylar surveyed the perimeter. "You did well today," I said casually, intending to compliment her skill in the skirmish. She didn't respond immediately, eyes focused on the horizon. Then something impulsive, reckless, perhaps human instinct, made me add, "And I think you're cute." I froze the moment the words left my lips. Xylar's eyes widened, and the faint blush I had noticed earlier in her cheeks flared dramatically into deep crimson. She glanced away, clearly flustered, then turned sharply, glaring at me with a mix of anger, embarrassment, and something that looked suspiciously like vulnerability. You dare," she said, voice quivering just enough to betray her feelings, "call me cute?" I didn't mean to embarrass you," I stammered, instantly regretting my impulsive confession. Her hands clenched at her sides, and for a heartbeat, I thought she would strike me. Instead, she turned her back, facing the alien moons that hung low in the sky, leaving me unsure if I had just ruined everything or opened a door I had no right to open. The chase. The next day, she refused to speak to me directly. Every attempt at conversation was met with clipped answers and averted eyes. I realized then that winning her trust, and her tolerance, would require more than words. Our mission took us deeper into hostile territory. A rogue faction of Xylar pirates had been terrorizing nearby colonies, and our joint team was dispatched to neutralize them. I had expected Xylar to keep her distance, but instead she insisted I remain close, assigning me a protective role alongside her. During the firefight, I saw the duality of her nature, fierce warrior yet vulnerable being. She moved with unmatched precision, yet her glances occasionally met mine, seeking assurance. I realized then that the blush from the previous night hadn't been anger, it had been confusion, uncertainty, and perhaps something deeper. After hours of intense battle, we emerged victorious, but battered and exhausted. Xylar collapsed onto a ledge, breathing heavily, and I knelt beside her. "You risked yourself again," she said softly, voice barely audible. "Why?" "Because I can't not," I replied. "I don't care about rank, species, or reputation. I care about you." Her gaze met mine, and for the first time since I had called her cute, she did not turn away. Instead, her crimson blush softened slightly, her posture relaxing. The turning point. Back at camp, under the soft glow of Velora Prime's moons, we shared silence. It was not awkward, it was intimate. I handed her a ration pack and she accepted it with a slight nod, eyes flicking toward me every few seconds. "I don't understand humans," she murmured finally. "Your words, your actions, they confuse me. And yet you're still listening," I said, a small smile on my face. She glanced down, voice barely above a whisper. "Perhaps, because I trust you despite everything." The admission struck me harder than any battle had. It was progress, fragile and tentative, but it was a start. The long journey home. Weeks passed. Missions came and went and our bond grew. The blush remained, subtle now, more frequent in quiet moments when no one else was watching. I found myself watching her, noting the way her ears twitched when she was amused, how her tail flicked when impatient, the subtle hints of vulnerability behind her warrior demeanor. One night, during a supply run on a neutral planet, we were ambushed by a mercenary squad. Xylar fought fiercely, but one of the attackers managed to get close. Without thinking, I threw myself between them, taking the brunt of a glancing blow. Pain exploded in my shoulder, but I maintained a protective stance. Xylar's eyes went wide, panic evident as she dispatched the attackers with ruthless efficiency. After the battle, she dragged me to safety, examining my wound with hands that trembled just slightly. "You idiot," she hissed, though her voice lacked anger. "Do you realize what you just did?" "I realized I couldn't let them hurt you," I replied through gritted teeth. Her blush flared again, deeper than I had ever seen. You are reckless, and yet, She trailed off, unsure of how to express the mix of relief, anger, and something much more intimate that she felt. And in the days that followed, the tension between us transformed into something undeniable. She could no longer hide her blush, her softening gaze, or the way she lingered near me, even in the presence of others. I too found myself drawn to her in ways I had not anticipated, craving not just her trust, but her closeness, her warmth, her laughter. One evening, under the amber sky of Velora Prime, I finally spoke what had been building inside me for months. "Xylar, I don't just care about your safety. I care about you. All of you. Your heart, your fears, your strength, your laughter, everything. I love you." For a heartbeat, she froze, crimson spreading from cheeks to neck, her violet eyes glimmering with emotions she could no longer contain. Then, with a grace that belied her warrior form, she stepped closer, hands brushing mine. "You've broken down every wall I've built," she whispered. I never imagined feeling this, for a human, and yet. I took her hands in mine, fingers intertwining. And yet here we are. No distance, no fear, no excuses. Just us. A slow smile spread across her face, shy and radiant, yet filled with the pride and strength of a warrior. "Then, stay with me," she said. "Not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, but as someone I can trust completely." From that moment onward, we became inseparable. She trained beside me, we shared quiet nights under alien moons, and I learned the nuances of her people while she learned the quirks and courage of humanity. The blush never completely faded, it was a constant reminder of our first honest, vulnerable moment, and it became a symbol of the bond that grew stronger with every challenge we faced. Through battles, negotiations, and treacherous journeys across the galaxy, we remained partners, lovers, and friends. Every time she looked at me with those violet eyes softened by warmth, I knew that words like cute could carry more weight than the fiercest laser or the most strategic maneuver. In the end, it was not the strength of warriors, the cunning of generals, or the power of empires that defined us. It was trust, honesty, and a simple human word that left the fiercest alien warrior blushing, and forever changed both our lives. And in that quiet, fleeting moment, I realized something profound. Sometimes, love begins with a single word, a single glance, and a single heartbeat shared between two souls, no matter how different they may seem.